Today I'm going to be recording the step-by-step instructions for Chapter 5 Gallery website, which is our step-by-steps. The Gallery website for Chapter 5 starts on page 270. The purpose of this chapter is learning to create interactive web pages that have Spry and Adobe widgets. So Spry validation is great because it makes your forms easier for users, and it checks for valid entries, which you'll see in a second what I'm talking about. So select your gallery website over in the panel on the right. After you open up gallery website, you should have multiple pages. We're going to be using the contact page to start. Make sure you have contact.html. Double click to open. In Chapter 4, we learned how to create a basic form. But if somebody forgets to fill in a field, they would not get an error message. Spry validation will give people error messages if they don't fill out the form correctly. So we're going to modify this form a little bit. All right. What you need to do is start out on your Spry tab. So up ahead, if you're currently in the Form tab, open up Spry. And you'll see these little icons pop up. These are the ones we're going to be using today. Okay, the first thing we want to modify is our first name text field. I'm already in the book on page 275, 276 right now, if you're following in the book. So go to your first name field, click on it, and then we want to make this a Spry validation text field. So click this icon. It'll bring up a property window down below. We're going to be modifying this in a few ways. First, we're going to name the field. So we want to call this text field first name. We want to make the preview state that this is a required field, so somebody knows that name is required. Click on this drop down and change it to required. Now the error message is going to say a value is required. That's not very descriptive, so we're going to change that text, backspace the text that it gives you, and make it say, please provide your first name. Now we want to save, so click on the disk right here to save. It'll bring up this dialog box, making sure that your style sheet will save. Click OK. Now if you go to your task panel on the right and you click on this refresh button, you'll see that a Spry assets folder has been created. It contains all of our the widget files we're going to be creating. We want to follow similar steps for last name, so click on last name. Under the Spry tab, we want to insert a Spry validation text field again. We are going to name that text field in the property window. So down here, you're going to delete and call it last name. We want the preview to state that this is a required field. So in the drop down, you might have to click twice, select required. And then we want to change this text again. It's going to read, oops, somehow I clicked out of the box. There you go. Make sure it types in red, otherwise it's not going to work. Please provide your last name. And then you can hit the disk to save. We want to follow a similar process for email, so click on the email text field, click the Spry validation text field. You want to name this field as email. For type, we want this to show up as email address. So click the drop down, change it to email address. This will ensure that somebody will put in the right format. For the preview, we want this to say required. And then the message currently reads a value is required. We want to change that, however, and make it say, please provide your email address. And then save. Also, because we made that format an email address, it'll make sure that somebody has an @email.com and that it's formatted properly. Next, you're going to click in the phone number field. You're going to select SPRY validation text field. Okay, the property window pops up down below. I'm going to name this field phone number. For type, I'm going to change it to phone number. Now we're going to keep this as US Canada so that the format will be in a US or Canada phone number. I want to give people a hint to make sure they type in the number properly. So I'm going to make the hint include parentheses for the area code. And here's a hint. We want to enforce the pattern, so you're going to click this little box for enforce pattern. That will make sure the person has to enter it in the right way. You can leave the preview as invalid format. And now hit save. Oh, just a note, because we put in phone number as the type, it'll put parentheses and the hyphen automatically when the person types in the phone number. So save. For the date, we are going to add the SPRY validation text field. I'm going to name this as session date. I want to change the type to date. I have to click twice on this drop down for some reason. Once we pick date, it'll automatically show up in this format. Although there are other options to note, but we're going to keep it month, month, day, day, year, year. I want to keep the preview as invalid format, and I want to enforce this pattern. So I'm going to click that checkbox for enforce pattern. Now double click. We don't want the person to have to delete this initial value. So now in the properties window, I'm going to take that text and just delete it so they don't have to type over that. Now save. And finally, we want to change our radio buttons, our radio group, to a SPRY validation radio group. So in chapter 4, we learned a simple way. Now we are learning a better way. So you're going to delete this, highlight everything, and hit delete. The SPRY validation radio group is the icon right here. I'm going to name the group. It's going to be called referral. I'm going to be changing my labels and adding some more. So the first one is going to be Google again. It's going to be the same choices. Second one will be magazine ad. Hit the plus. My next option is going to read newspaper. Hit the plus again and scroll down. Friend will be the fourth option. And one more plus. Scroll down and it's going to read other. At this point, you can hit OK. Your new radio group will pop up. I'm going to name it down here in my properties window and make it say referral. And that's really all you need to change, so you can hit OK and save. When you get this window to pop up, just hit OK. If you hit refresh over here on your task pane on the right, you'll notice you have more Spry widgets popping up for your radio group and your text fields. Now we want to test this in the browser. So you can either preview it in Internet Explorer or Chrome. I'm going to preview in Internet Explorer. We want to make sure that somebody filling out the form is going to get the proper error messages. If you get this warning message down here, you should click to allow the block content. Okay, let's type in nothing and just hit submit. We should get all these error messages. Oops, it looks like I forgot to do the one for last name. I'll go back and do that. So now I'm gonna fill in my name and see what happens. Hit submit. Now it turns green, so it makes it seem like it's okay. Try putting in an email in the wrong format, like just mbeasley with nothing else, and hit submit. It tells you that's an invalid format. It's looking for the proper format. So now I'll put @jsmorton.org and submit. Now it knows it's okay. It sees the @ and the .org or the .com. Phone number, because we selected the phone number type, it's going to automatically put your parentheses and your dash. Okay. We can put in a date. It won't let you put it in the wrong format, so I'm going to put it in the correct format and then submit. Again, it shows everything as correct. Because I forgot to fill in a radio group, it still gives me the error message. Now I can submit. Okay, I'm going to close out my preview in Internet Explorer. And the one thing I forgot to do was add the Spry validation for this text field here. Oh, you know what? I think I accidentally deleted the text field. So I'm just going to leave that how it is right now. Okay, I'm going to stop and save, and we'll continue with part 2 tomorrow. You can hit save all to make sure everything's updated.